fill the gaps.
You're pretty good with the time.
Well, all right. So we can go ahead and start back up again. Just as the beginning of last time, any questions anyone wants to start with? Feel free to ask. All right. Yep. Yes.
I mean, this isn't related to what we were just talking about. The last time we were teaching,
Uh-huh.
we were talking about how, like, and forgive me for paraphrasing, but like, sexual urges come from like thought forms outside of you, and like when you act on them, it's not necessarily an act of it's not necessarily like your own self desiring to do it.
So it is, but when you are sexually aroused, it's the result of an agreement you have made with a particular thought form, entity, energy. So it's not like the thing is making you feel sexually aroused. Is that you are allowing that experience to take place in yourself after making an agreement to intercourse with a particular thought form.
So what about other forms of pleasure? You decide like, I want some chocolate. Are there chocolate thought forms out there, or like,
So
I want to go for a jog? Are there jogging? Like, I mean, like when did it stop being like, there are other things out there like pushing you to do this stuff, and like you have free will and you actually like doing, or there are things that you as a person actually enjoy doing.
So I don't want to make it seem like you don't have free will. The free will you have is what thoughts to give life to. So you can choose what things you want to incorporate into yourself and then act on. So it's not that we're sort of floating in a sea of things that are manipulating us. It's that we're floating in a sea of things that we have the ability to choose from. Now, the point at which we make the choice is very much, in most cases, is unconscious, in the sense that we just feel like we want something. For example, out of nowhere, I just want some chocolate. The point at which we decide that that is what we want happens at generally speaking, at a level that is deeper in our unconscious and subconscious, and then sort of rises up into our conscious mind, and we recognize it as the desire to get this one specific thing. It also may be that we have a desire for something, and what we then translate that into in terms of physical action is only an attempt to reflect what we actually want. And what I mean by that, as an example, is like if I'm addicted to chocolate, I am associating chocolate with pleasure because what I actually want is to stop feeling pain as a result of whatever situation. So chocolate, I have decided that that is the physical symbol that is sort of ritualistically giving me what I actually want, which is in some way some respite from whatever it is I'm going through. But that said, we have the ability to, so let's say you, I don't know, encounter some sort of thought form that's just bouncing around out there. And it's not telling you specifically, go eat this chocolate. But you divert it into that because that's how you've interpreted it as that experience is sort of welling up in your unconscious. So there's not like one thing, I guess I could say, is happening, because the more we know our own selves, the more we can determine whether or not we are actually making a choice that's in line with what we desire in our innermost being for spiritual growth, versus whether we are responding to something that we encounter and then either redirecting it or reinterpreting it or just doing what it says. Does that make any sense?
Not a lot.
So
because it still seems like even if it's a subconscious thing,
yep.
Like again, it's not free will. It's like you're acting on some sort of lizard brain level. Like, oh, everything is bad. I'm gonna go appease my. I'm gonna go like get my totem fetish or whatever, instead of like, I am a sentient, sapient creature and I desire this.
Well-
Because then it's either there's whether it's like the devil on your shoulder or the spirit of gluttony or whatever, like it's something is moving you to do this, and it's not you as a person, like, I like chocolate, I want to go have chocolate now. Or like, I went to the gym all week, I'm going to go have some ice cream. Or whatever. It just, and maybe I'm not understanding how you're explaining it. It just seems like there's other forces at work, and it's your job to decide whether or not you're going to let these forces act on you. But you also can't, to an extent.
Can't decide, you mean?
Yeah, like you can't really make that decision.
So what's the decision then?
That's the problem I'm having understanding. Because it's either you do the thing, whether it's chocolate or sex or smoking or whatever, and then the thought form wins, so to speak, or you don't do it. And then it just boils down to like everything you're doing is something else influencing you to do it. So if you do anything, it seems, it's because something else is out there like pushing you to do it. Like at what point do you actually get to make a decision
I see.
of your own?
That's, hello. Yeah, I don't want to give you that impression that everything you do is a result of something else influencing you to do that. You do have the ability to make your own decisions. So if you just want chocolate, you are more than welcome to follow your own volition and go get some chocolate. So it's not just one thing. We have the ability to make our own decisions, but we are also existing within an ecosystem of thought forms. And we can give life to certain ones or choose not to. We can put our own out there of our own volition, as opposed to just reacting to everything that's beamed towards us or something like that. It's difficult to talk about and sort of parse intellectually, but I would say that the more you are aware of why you do what you do, or what prompted you to make a certain decision or do whatever, you can identify where that sort of impulse comes from, whether or not it's something that you want to do of your own free will, or whether or not it's something that, let's say, a wavelength you picked up on, if that makes sense. I do want to say we do have free will. Everything you do is not the result of something else outside of you telling you, go here and do this. So we do have free will.
But I also want to add that even if in fact everything is out there trying to tell you what to do, you still have the will to do it or to choose not to do it.
But then all you're doing is saying no. Because if everything is trying to get you to do something, like every action that you take is being dictated by an outside force. The only thing you can do is say no, which seems counterintuitive to the sort of like expansion and light kind of thinking that we've been going over. So that doesn't gel with everything else.
But that presupposes that every thought you have will be a thought that gives the response of no, and that's not so. There are lots of different thoughts.
But that's the point. Like even if you're pushed to like, oh, I should go help that person who fell, like something is still pushing you to do it.
Let me say something right quick. And I don't usually talk, but this might help you out. There's nothing really, you shouldn't really see anything as outside of yourself. So if something is egging you to do something and prompting you to make a decision, that's something inside of you bringing your attention to something. And so, let's say, like you said, there's a chocolate thought form, there's a sex thought form, there's a smoking thought form, there's whatever, you can make up your own thought.
Right.
It's all coming from within.
You are the only participant in the conference. Please press any key on your keypad to remain in conference.
That's my key to let you know that I said that.
Yeah.
It's a polite way to say nobody's listening.
No.
This is a reminder that whatever's in you, I mean, all that's in you.
I said it right.
That's what he's saying. Even when
Oh,
it
okay.
seems external, it's still,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
in
Okay.
you.
Good to see. Yeah, I agree with that. And now that I think I have a better understanding of what you're saying, like, okay, I'm not going to do this bad thing, which is an outside thing. I'm going to do this good thing, but that's still like an outside thing.
Right.
I actually kind of agree with that. So our understanding of free will and what that actually is kind of the root of this discussion.
Well,
So we,
but you putting the moral, the judgment in there, what's good and bad.
no, that's, don't worry about that. What,
Well, but the only thing I was gonna say to that
that's
is
a whole nother,
that that's where you're, based on what your self-awareness, that's how you can make that decision. It's not inherently good or bad. Chocolate isn't inherently good or bad for you, but the fact is now that science tells you that whatever it is in your brain knows from your experience that that's what gives you pleasure. If you decided at some point in your life, I want to take a different route, you've got to overcome that. So you have to make a decision. Doesn't mean that take chocolate is some demon trying to distract you. You know what I'm saying? But if you're evolving, growing, changing in awareness and sense of who and what you are, then you're going to make choices based on those, your habits, call them habits if you want, or the energies that are out there ostensibly to give you what you and humanity can choose from. There's no, this is bad for you, that's good. This inherently. I just don't buy this evil versus good necessarily. It's all about what it does to you or how you deal with it. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, you could say it in an absurd way. It's, why does the fact that the NRA can say guns don't kill people, people do resonate? Because there's something in the core of that distracted phrase that people hold on to. You're right, you have to pull the trigger. It doesn't happen by itself. So, you know, I mean, that's maybe an absurd thing, but so as you go through your life, you find, are you choosing the same things you chose 15 years ago? Those things are not worse for you or better for you, and now you're making better choices. You may be making different ones. They may be better in the sense that you have a sense of wholeness or fullness that comes from those choices. I mean, the only way to get away from choices that I've ever read about it is takes you back to the whole Buddhist thing. To get away from any of that. And that's the only way to do that is to go deeply into yourself, find that connection, and be. It doesn't mean that Buddhists don't love to have chocolate, right? But they probably just pick it up, eat it, and go, that was great, and then they move on. So, I don't know if that's. I don't see it as a sea of demonic or forces that are trying to, hey, come over here, you know? All that kind of thing. But that's how you interpret it. It's part of that whether you're giving it power or credence or not. And then maybe you do from old habits, but you have to overcome them because something in you has decided not to let that siren catch your attention anymore. So
to help a little bit.
maybe not, I don't know. But
So,
even if it is you against the world, why do we have that expression? Where's that come? The stuff that comes out of our folk stuff is, you know, touches points. Because there is a bit of a, the question is how to overcome that and just get to a point where you don't need it. You don't want the chocolate. You want something else. You need the same something that's more fulfilling. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Chocolate's not
That
bad.
was pretty, yeah.
You can make bad chocolate, but you know.
yeah, so what you're asking is perfectly valid, but it will derail everything that I want to get to.
That's fine.
Because that same question actually applies, it is dealing with the nature of free will and what that actually is, and the sort of metaphysical structure of how that works. Like the same question could be asked, like, did I just choose to raise my arm right now, or did something just tell me to do that?
Right.
And that, there is a way to deal with that in terms of how it relates to who we are as spiritual beings, and that is a very in-depth thing to try to intellectually explain and sort of examine all the pieces of. And that is something that we definitely can get into in here, but I'd rather, yeah, I don't want to do that just right this second.
No worries.
But no, that's a very good question, and it actually gets into some deep metaphysical things that we will get into in here at some point. Probably when I come down next, because the next thing I wanted to do after this talk about religion is the sort of metaphysical and spiritual hierarchy that we exist within. So when we're talking about things that are happening physically, we're talking about the result of a cascade of spiritual energy, for lack of a better explanation. So when I move my hand or decide to do something, there is so just not to get into it too much, I'm just down here in the physical making my decisions and doing whatever. Everything that I do as a result of me using my consciousness is the result of a cascade of spiritual metaphysical events that results in something physical happening. I can choose which one I want to give life to, though. But the full sequence of what is happening is much greater than what we are seeing here physically.
And there's more to view than just the man at the bottom.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's like your existence extends up through those different
Yes,
levels.
the whole way. But
even
this,
if we aren't aware of it.
put a dotted line, is the capacity to be aware of who you are at any one given time. Beyond that, that appears to be that which is unconscious or subconscious to you. But it still is you, because you extend the whole way. And the whole point of the process of enlightenment is to expand this bubble so that you can feel and be consciously aware of the decisions you make, as opposed to making them unconsciously at some point and then at some point becoming aware of them.
And then that overlay on top of that, the fact that every decision impacts another world.
Yep.
Someone else's space, someone else's world.
Yep. And that's where discussions like, when you start to get into the nitty-gritty metaphysics or whatever fancy sounding word we could call it, it gets very, very complicated to try to really explain how all this works. And we can do that, and like I said, I think we will, in a more direct way, but I want to save stuff like that, or specific questions like that for when we come together to do that on purpose. But yeah, because it will just, we could be here all day. We could bring in quantum physics and the many worlds interpretation that sort of forms the foundation for the standard model, and how the many worlds interpretation that's found in physics is the same as the one infinite creator dividing itself into the infinite densities and dimensions that are present in reality, and how your consciousness is the thing that connects you to all of them. So when you expand that bubble, you become aware of those other densities, dimensions of reality, wherein exist things and things and stuff. That is all part of this discussion.
I feel like that should be an official phrase.
Yeah.
Things and stuff.
But yeah, I don't want to minimize your question at all, but it's just opened up a whole nother direction that I physically can't do at the moment, but it will be done.
But Nick, if he don't get it here, he could be riding down the road one day and have an aha moment, you know?
Yeah, and I'm not even saying that I just said the
Right.
right thing, but it's a difficult thing to pinpoint and understand at every step. But it's a good thing to want to try, and that's good. Okay, so let's continue with where I left off anyway.
Facebook.
Yeah.
Rules and I missed part of that discussion, by the way. You were talking about
Digital religion or whatever.
digital religion, and as the number of rules increase, how does the rules discussion tie into Facebook again? You weren't talking about permissions.
Facebook and Twitter have more and more rules. No, it was the opposite because Twitter gives you less space to communicate.
Right. And I was using that as an example of
The granularity of it.
right. The increasing complexity of it's kind of a different example because Twitter is technically less complex than Facebook. But the point I was making, wherever you have in the beginning and according to your own spiritual awareness and ability to draw from what is to make the determination about what represents harmony or balance in a given situation and how you can move yourself to be in line with balance or harmony in a given situation is very simple. It does not require you to go down a list of things in your head and see whether or not, check one thing off and check them all off the list, and if you've checked them all off the list, that is the right thing to do. This is what I should do. No. Your own connection is much simpler than that. It's much cleaner than that. And when you see the increasing number of things you have to check off the list, you are seeing the infinite expansion within a closed space. You are seeing the attempt to fill the vacuum with stuff as a direct result of our spiritual disconnection or sense of disconnection. So that's what I was just trying to use an example with Facebook and Twitter. So I saw continuing on with I saw a picture. It was somebody, a right-wing Christian person. And this is the picture I saw, but it got me thinking, so I wanted to include it. It was a guy holding up a sign that said, the sign said, Allah, talking about Islam, is Satan. And I wanted to use this as an example of the way in which this so-called the religion of Christianity has moved so far away from its origin so as to be completely unrecognizable. If the person, Yeshua, was alive, living today, he would see Christianity and be extremely disappointed, most likely.
Over some tables.
What'd you say?
He flipped over some tables.
Yeah.
Again.
But if you look at the word, well, first of all, if Allah is Satan, he's saying God is not Satan. God is good. But there is no Christian word for God, because Christian is not a language. Now, Jesus, Yeshua, would have been speaking Aramaic. The word for the Creator in Aramaic is, I don't know if that's spelled correctly, but is Allah. So if Allah is Satan, and this is Christian dude holding the sign, when the very word and name that Jesus would have used for God is closer to Allah than the word God, who is he talking about?
He's
So
talking
who is
about
God?
all his experiences of ISIL and those kinds of thoughts that are negative that he's rolled up and say, if they say this, then it must be bad because they are bad.
Yep.
So
that is the sort of negative stuff he's projecting and seeing in parts of Islam. But the Christianity that he is falling back on, if it is not this, because he does not use the word Allah to describe the Creator as Jesus would have, the Christianity he is falling back on is more satanic than, not the negative parts of Islam, but Islam in general. But the point I'm trying to make is that his image of what is evil is the thing that he worships as a Christian in a different form. Because, as I said in the beginning, if you call yourself Christian, it doesn't matter where in the world you are, you fall under the purview of the Catholic Church. So if you worship the Catholic Church and you think the opposite of the Catholic Church is Satan, when the opposite of the Catholic Church is spirituality, you are worshiping something that is satanic. And that's pretty much what the Catholic institution and concepts are. Now, as for what Satan is, that obviously is very much wrapped up into religion, but it has its spiritual origin as well.
Can you talk a little bit about what that is? I mean, when you say the Catholic Church and its
Yeah.
principles are satanic, like, can you break that down?
Yeah. So first off, obviously that doesn't mean everyone who calls himself is a Catholic is like a bad person or anything like that. But it means the institution was founded on principles that are not based in spirituality. They are based in material influence and the desire for power over whatever. And in that sense, they are opposed to the influence of true spirituality, which is anything but the desire for domination or power over other people. And in that sense, they are satanic. And what that word even comes from in terms of Hebrew is adversary. And it relates to, that's basically what it relates to. Those things that are in our way that are preventing us from spiritual growth. That we either learn how to get beyond or we turn into the thing that we worship if we don't understand how to let go of them. So that's what I mean with that. So, I'm not saying you need to become Muslim, obviously. It does not matter what you call yourself. It doesn't matter what label you put on yourself. It doesn't matter what corner of this infinite universe you come from. You don't need to become anything. Anything that you think you should. Rather, we need to know what is present already. And bring that which we know into realization by removing the blockages that create confusion and impede the natural flow of energy within us. And this concept of knowing something kind of goes back to what I had just drawn on the board, talking about free will. Your knowledge of self, as you expand your capacity to be aware of what is in you, you are expanding your knowledge of self and growing in knowledge of self. You can feel all the ways in which you are operating that were previously unconscious to you and make your free will decision from a deeper place in your own self, as opposed to feeling like you don't know what's going on, that there are things manipulating you. Because things manipulating you is habit. What you do out of habit is things present in your own unconscious, setting the direction and influencing the nature of the conscious decisions that you make. If you can't break a habit, it's because there's a certain feedback loop that's happening in your own subconscious, something that you become addicted to. And when you expand your knowledge of self, and what that means is when you become more aware of what is in you, you can stop that feedback loop and you can break that habit. Now, ritual comes into play, especially, well, and that's ritual is definitely related to religious practice, of course, but ritual comes into play in that when you focus your awareness on something, a particular act, the string of beads you have around your neck, whatever that is, it focuses your awareness. And it allows you to penetrate to a deeper level in your own self by sort of bringing yourself into alignment through focus. So all ritual is designed to help you change your own mind. So when you see somebody who goes to AA meetings or NA and they give you like a coin or something, that is in part a sort of ritualistic recognition that you have changed your own mind to an extent, and however long that process goes or whatever. But you can do the same thing yourself. There's nothing wrong with having people help you do that, but this is what we're doing. We in here right now are breaking our own addiction to illusion, to Maya, which I mentioned from before. Yes?
What you're talking about reminds me of what we kind of commonly call a midlife crisis, where someone has just kind of lived on autopilot up to a certain point, and then they recognize that, you know, I made this decision, I did these things, and I had no understanding of like where they came from, or I just kind of allowed other people to guide my life, and now I'm going to do it my way. Like I'm not saying that's necessarily a positive epiphany, I guess, maybe depending on what's going on, but it seems to jive really well with the concept of not really knowing your own intention, not really knowing yourself. And you just get to a point where you wake up and you're like, how did I get here?
Yeah. And it's because we have, first of all, not been taught how to really listen to what we truly want and what is going on inside of us. And then we sort of build a semblance of what we think we want on the outside of that, and then you reach that midlife crisis point where you have a moment of clarity and can see through the illusion that you have built up around yourself. And essentially your own spirit is telling you this is something that needs to change in order for you to truly grow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yes, though, with that, with the midlife crisis concept, it's like a wham, a cosmic baseball bat. And what happens is you end up doing the opposite. You know, it makes you think, wow, man, I've made all these decisions, and now I'm just going to live my life. And living my life means there are no consequences to the things I say or do or anyone else. So it depends on, you know, even then there's a choice of what you do with that knot on your head from the cosmic baseball bat.
Different strokes for different folks. I would see it more as something that grows in you. And even if, as they say, when you get older, you feel more free to say what you feel. But that's all part of, that's not meant to be destructive. It's just no more of the nuance and confusion. This is, and then I want a reaction, but it's not an attack. It's just part of that opening up. Because if you're going to undo things, you have to open up and see what's been done and to let go of them. And remembering that if you're pushing yourself back into a new wilderness, that may create new gaps.
Yep. And that
doesn't mean you pick a better direction. It just may be more exciting for a while, and then you go, oops, you know. I got that out of my system, right? So what do we say? I got that out of my system.
Yeah.
We were repressing it for 30 years, and now
Do you have a life expectancy?
theoretically, as you get older, you learn quicker. That's the best thing you could say, right?
That's a good point. Decisions, I mean, there are infinite decisions that we can make. And we're the ones who put the judgment on those decisions.
Yeah.
And if based on those decisions we make, we don't grow through them, grow spiritually through them, then, you know, it really does put us back to square one. But there's significant ones that we use to catapult us, catapult, P-U-L-T, us, toward our spiritual growth. So, I mean, I agree, there's no bad or good decision. It's just an experience that we've got to go through to push us further in terms of growth.
And we have those opportunities throughout our lives. It's just that the midlife crisis, when they all, we built up so much, they sort of all coalesce and crack through the illusion we built up. But we have those same choices to make over the course of our lives. Always have the opportunity to listen. And it's not easy at all, of course, but it gets easier once you start.
Well, yeah, you're just saying we have an incredible capacity to do the wrong thing for a very long time.
Well, cosmically speaking, our lives are pretty short.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean.
So, it's not that long.
And the other thing, point I wanted to make is when Denise said midlife crisis, look at the container that we use to describe what happened. Somebody coined that and they bounded it by midlife crisis. That's-
Very Freudian,
when I reach my thought point in life, you know, you
Yeah,
can
that's
tell
the
anything.
structure.
Those are impositions onto reality that we make.
Yeah.
So we are shaping reality in accordance with within the context of our ignorance of what it is most of the time, which means we are hurting ourselves without knowing it, shooting ourselves in the foot, like I said before the break. And we do that through language, we do that through what we think. So, what did I say? So, you don't need to become anything. There is no conversion of one religion to another. That is a completely man-made concept. You don't change just by saying one thing or the other, or identifying one way or the other. The base and inner spiritual process is the same, which is to know yourself and know how you are connected to those parts of yourself that we are as of yet unaware of. And to bring what it is we know into realization. So it doesn't matter what religious label you have assigned yourself. And that includes atheism or Buddhism. Some people don't consider Buddhism a religion, quote unquote. It also includes material science, and that just kind of goes hand in hand with atheism. It does not matter what you call yourself. It matters what limitations have you set or not set for yourself. If you desire to understand what is real, and this is real, then you will arrive at the same conclusion. So, it doesn't matter what you call yourself. It matters whether or not you want to know what is real. And you want to know how you relate to what is real. The source of all things has no name which we could ascribe to it. But it expresses itself in one of its most basic forms as loving kindness. That qualitative experience of loving kindness is a spiritual energy that we have the ability to draw from, generate, and give out. And it is, in its most basic form, the fundamental bedrock of this thing, this experience that we are calling reality. So, oh yeah, go
Well, I
ahead.
was gonna say, couldn't you really say it's not a, I forget what word you use, it's, my sense is the more, and it's almost like the farther you get away from the dots and the details, the more that you see that that's the overriding energy.
Yeah.
Love is all. The more you dig into it, you find the good, the bad, the ugly. The more you see the allness, wholeness of it, it's not a, what's the word, force. It's ultimately all force. What would be the physics equivalent? E equals mc squared, whatever. The ultimate equation, whatever you want. Energy, whatever. Light, right? So, yeah, light, I guess we could sort of say.
Yeah, light, that's a good word.
Yeah.
But we have the ability down in the nitty-gritty granularity to choose whether or not we want to give loving kindness or not.
Right.
So in the sense of what you're saying, it's not just the average of everything that is when you step out.
I didn't say average, I said it's the wholeness of, it's the entirety of all that other stuff, to use your word, that's inside it, which could be good, bad, and ugly, depending on where you are, what you're doing with it, and how you're judging yourself or others because of it. But it's all also, isn't it not, can't you say it's like that, no matter what you do wrong, good, bad, or ugly, at the end of the day, it's all part of the light. It's all part of the goodness, if you want to use that word.
Yep, it is. But then why are we here in this room physically talking about this right now, though?
If you're just saying it doesn't mean I know it.
Right. The process of knowing it.
There's a small part of my brain that does, but that's way less than even the 5% that I get to use.
The process of knowing that is the process of learning to reflect that in this occasionally negative experience.
Right, but yeah,
So what I'm saying is, when we choose to align ourselves with that and then reflect that and vibrate that within this occasionally negative experience, what we are doing is building that connection to the fundamental basis for all of reality and its source, which is called by many names but can't be called by name, which is Creator. If your pursuit of truth is sincere, you will find the same thing. And that's why, regardless of whatever religious institution or group you're looking at, the core that it comes from, which deals more with consciousness and awareness and mysticism, they will talk about the same things. So the Sufi in Islam will be able to meet up with the Native American and talk about the same things. And it doesn't matter where or what background you come from. When you realize that your own connection is what you have the ability to draw from, all of the sort of cultural or other stuff surrounding that is minimized in terms of its influence. And you can, through your own agency, learn from the source directly, as opposed to having it interpreted. And when you learn from the source directly, all those you don't need interpretation as much. So that's why the Native American and the Sufi can talk about the same thing, because they're both learning from the same source.
Closer to, like, there are fewer filters between them and
Right.
their understanding.
Right. So,
well, there probably would be, yeah, because it's not we're right, you're wrong. It's more genuine interest in how you're the learning from the exchange, right? Which ideally would be what we want from each other. Help me to be better. I would be selfish. And then there's synergy that comes from that too. As opposed to my ideas are right, yours are wrong. There's nothing learned in it.
There's a difference between like trying to define reality and dictate what's real and what's true, and then attempting to discover it.
Yeah.
Right? The two people who are searching versus the two people who are
Yeah, it's like that
battling about
nice little
what is real.
line in Avatar where the queen says, "You can't fill a glass with water." Cool.
yep.
Anyway.
Should we take another 10-minute break? Let's take a 10-minute break, everybody who's on the phone. Just 10 minutes. I'll leave the phone on.
Is there anybody on the phone?
If there's anybody on the phone.